Are you constantly getting this notification? And you got a big event coming up in Pokemon Go and you need space? Well, this video is gonna completely break down how to manage your storage in Pokemon Go. I'm actually gonna be going through my storage in this video as well, so you can follow along and follow my tips on how to manage your storage. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get into the transferring storage, we need to understand what are the different categories of Pokemon you wanna be potentially keeping in the game. Remember, you don't need to keep Pokemon for this category if you don't enjoy that type of gameplay. The first category is going to be PvP Pokemon. If you're into PvP or wanna get into PvP, this is a category of Pokemon you might want to consider. For now and forever, the best website to find the best PvP Pokemon in Pokemon Go is going to be pvpoke.com. You can come to the rankings section and then you can go ahead and click Great League, Ultra League, Master League, any of the other cups, and it will give you a full list in order of the best Pokemon for that league. Granted, this obviously, like, you can still use a Pokemon, you know, like Ferroseed ranked 92 might still beat some of the higher ranked Pokemon like Swampert, so refer to that website if you're curious what the best PvP Pokemon are to keep. I will mention, when you are going through PvP Pokemon, there are going to be certain Pokemon, like for example this Noibat here, which has decent PvP IVs, but Noivern is not good for PvP. Now, if you are a person with not a lot of storage, I would definitely recommend just transferring these Pokemon right now, but you do have to note that every single season the movesets on Pokemon do change, and there are certain Pokemon which could get better. Personally, I like to keep PvP IVs on every single Pokemon because you never know when something's going to get good, but if you don't have the space, most likely just keep PvP IVs for Pokemon which are currently good in the meta. It's going to be a lot more value out of your storage than saving things that might potentially be good in the future. Again, refer to PvPoke. The second category is going to be raid attacking Pokemon. Pokemon that you can use against legendary raids to go ahead and take down raids faster. Best website for this is going to be the comprehensive DPS/TDO spreadsheet on GamePress.gg. By the way, all these websites link below. Then in this search bar, you can go ahead and search at and then an asterisk and then a typing. Let's say ice. Then at the top here, you're going to go ahead and check best, and then you can go ahead and order that by damage per second DPS. And this will show you all the best Pokemon in order of damage per second for the ice type raid attacking category. Galarian Darmanitan in the Zen mode, obviously not in the game yet, but first one is going to be Shadow Mamoswine, Shadow Weavile, Galarian Darmanitan, Shenpao not in the game yet, but Baxcalibur, Mega Glalie, you get the point, and you can just go ahead and change this out for any typing. Remember, if you're not into raids or PvP, you don't need to keep these types of Pokemon. But the final type Pokemon, which probably everyone wants to keep, is going to be your favorite Pokemon. That's just going to be rare Pokemon or your favorite actual Pokemon. For example, I love Sableye, so I just keep Sableyes because I want to. Shinies, random shadow ones, purified ones. I just love Sableye, so I'm gonna keep them. This also goes for things like Galarian birds, which are super rare, and your favorite Pokemon might be a category of Pokemon you want to go ahead and keep. By the way, if you don't want to search what the best PvP Pokemon or raid attacking Pokemon to keep are in the game, I actually have a video which I will link up here and below about the best Pokemon to power up in Pokemon Go in 2024. You can refer to that video if you don't want to do the research yourself, because in there I break down all the best raid attacking and all the best PvP Pokemon for each type. So that might be useful to you when transferring your storage. Okay, now that we know the three categories of Pokemon we're going to be going ahead and keeping, we now have to dive into our storage and start marking different Pokemon. First off, PvP Pokemon. Now, if you don't know, in your search bar here, you can actually search 0 to 1 attack and 3 to 4 HP and 3 to 4 defense. This will actually show you all the Pokemon in your storage with generally low attack, high defense, high stamina IVs, which are the IVs you actually want on PvP Pokemon. It makes them bulkier, it makes them more defensive and better for PvP. If you're curious on why, that's a whole other video. I'll link it below. But just for now, these are the IVs you actually want on PvP Pokemon. So first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start going through all of my potential PvP IV Pokemon and start checking their IVs. There's actually a website, pvpivs.com, which will tell you how good that PvP IV Pokemon is. For example, this Magikarp is a 111-12 IV. So if we want to take like a Gyarados here, that's gonna be a rank 271 in the Great League. It'll be a 388 in the Ultra League and not good in the Master League. So then I go ahead and mark this as a good PvP IV potentially Magikarp. By the way, how I mark my PvP Pokemon, first I'll put a dot and then I'll put G for Great League or U for Ultra League, and then I'll put dot 99 or 98 or 97 or whatever percentage of the PvP IV that is. For example, if it's the best possible PvP, it's going to be 100%. If it's from 1 to 50, you're going to get probably 99% because it's in the top 99th percentile. If you want to be also simpler, you can also just straight up write the ranking like 271. That'll be a Ultra League rank 271 Gyarados. Now, specifically when I'm transferring storage, I'll actually just go ahead and mark all of these Pokemon that have good PvP IV Pokemon because I don't really want to be checking each and one of their rankings right now. I just kind of want to be getting through my storage. So what you can do is just go ahead and star all of these Pokemon, and then you can go ahead and check their rankings later. Or you can check them as you're doing this, but pretty much what you want to do is go ahead and mark all of your Great League and Ultra League Pokemon with the dot .g or .u, depending on if it's Great League or Ultra League. Feel free to go ahead and pause the video and do that for yourself now. Okay, now your PvP Pokemon should be marked or at least have a favorite icon on them, and you're gonna go ahead and check their IVs later. But now we have to take a look at raid Pokemon. Now, when searching for raid Pokemon, what I'll do is go ahead and search for attack because I wanna make sure my raid Pokemon have 15 attack and 3 star. Now, you don't have to add the 4 attack, but generally Pokemon with 15 attack are gonna be much better. And this will show you all Pokemon with 15 attack that are also 3-star IVs. So generally good IVs like this Meowth, for example. I'll then come in here and start marking the Pokemon that have good IVs. By the way, when I mark my raid attacking Pokemon, I'll do .M. M stands for Master League, but Master League is also raid attacking. They're like both the same thing because you need hundos for that. You want the best possible IVs for a raid attacking Pokemon and the Master League Pokemon. And then I'll do the percentage of the actual Pokemon. So for example, here, this is a 98% Meowth because it's only missing 1 stat. Apps like Pokegenie, by the way, can scan your Pokemon and tell you how good of a total IV set you have if you're curious. But pretty much, I'm gonna go ahead and go through here and mark all of the Pokemon with good total IVs. Not that I'm gonna be ever using a Shuckle in the Master League, but this is just how I mark them. It's a lot easier to know. .M is going to be a very high IV, generally Shuckle. So let me go through these and I'm going to go ahead and mark all these. Now, I will say, as I'm doing this, you do have to note that some of these Pokemon I'm marking are not good for raids at all. Like, you know, Sneasler is not that great of a raid attacker. So again, refer to that website, the best raid attacking Pokemon, and you theoretically only need to keep Pokemon that are good for raids. For example, this Shadow Makuhita, which is a great fighting type raid attacker, has decent overall IVs. I'm definitely going to keep that. But then, you know, something like this Omanyte, you could probably go ahead and transfer. Personally, I just like to keep high IV Pokemon, but it's going to be up to you if you have the space for it or not, because at the end of the day, this Omanyte will probably be useless to me. Other things to remember, by the way, is you only need 6 of each type of raid attacking Pokemon. For example, Metagross. As you can see here, if I type Metagross and .M, I have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 Metagrosses. So theoretically, I could transfer 2 of these because your raid party can only have up to 6 Pokemon. So there's no point in really keeping more than 6. Also, very important to remember, when you are doing these search threads, if you want to save these for later, you can actually come into the search bar, click see more, and it'll show you your recent searches here. For example, that raid attacking search we just did, if I long hold on that, it will go ahead and save it here into my favorites, and then I can rename it raid attacks. So then when I come into my search bar at any point, I can say search here, click see more, and then just click search raid attack, and instantly will pop up all these potential Pokemon that have good IVs and 15 attack. I also will mention I have made a video breaking down a search thread that will instantly search the best raid attackers for each type, which I will link below. So if you don't want to actually just go through it individually and just want to instantly pop up, for example, I have some of these set right now, like ground. I can just click ground and it actually pops up all the Pokemon that are metal relevant as ground type raid attackers. I don't think it shows you their basic forms, does it? I think it only shows you their full forms. I'm not sure, but check out that video. It has a bunch of just quick search threads that can go ahead and make those searches for you so you don't have to. Okay, once we've marked all of our raid and PvP Pokemon, we now have to take a look at extra large and extra small Pokemon. These are bigger or smaller Pokemon that could potentially be used in showcases. Now, personally, I still just go ahead and transfer all my extra smalls and extra larges because usually we don't have repeat showcases, but this is something to consider where you can come in here and just go ahead and mark all your extra larges and extra smalls if you want to save them for potentially in the future when we do get repeat showcases. For example, if Chansey ever comes back into showcases. Again, I don't like to save these Pokemon because I just know I'll end up catching more that are more relevant to the current event, but feel free to save those if you'd like. Finally, the last thing you need to mark is your gem Pokemon. Now again, it's kind of hard. You're not gonna like, especially if you have a lot of storage, you're not gonna go through this whole storage and be like, what Pokemon means a lot to me? So the best thing to do is when you catch a Pokemon that you really care about, make sure you mark it. For example, you know, like a Galarian Moltres. Make sure you star it, make sure you know, give it a special nickname. Another thing I have here is my 300,000th catch, which is this Darumaka. So I've gone ahead and marked it as 300K because this is the 300K catch I got in Pokemon Go. So again, just mark your favorite Pokemon, you know, your Sableye, whatever Sableye is to me, that Pokemon that is to you, go ahead and mark that Pokemon. Now, once we've done all of that, we now need to go ahead and bulk transfer. So what you're gonna do is in the search thread, you're gonna go ahead and search exclamation point 4-star. By the way, adding an exclamation point before anything will remove that from the search thread. So this is removing hundos. And exclamation point shiny, and exclamation point legendary, and exclamation point mythical, and exclamation point ultra beasts, and exclamation point purified, and exclamation point shadow. This will pretty much remove from your search thread all the Pokemon we just went ahead and listed. But from here, why we added that dot before all of those other search threads is now you can search and exclamation point dot, and it will remove all of those potential PvP Pokemon and raid attacking Pokemon we marked. If you, by the way, just favorited Pokemon, you can actually search and favorite. It will remove all those Pokemon you mark with the favorite that you're gonna check for IVs later. Finally, I personally, in my tags, have a tag set up called trade, which are Pokemon I wanna trade. So I'm gonna go ahead and click and trade, which will remove all of the Pokemon I potentially wanna trade. Oh, and also to this, you can add and traded, which are Pokemon you've received from trades, which I also like to remove from this search thread. And what this leaves us with is a potential pool of Pokemon you can go ahead and transfer. As you can see here, I have 1,700 Pokemon I could transfer. From here, you go ahead and obviously select all transfer, but I don't really have the balls to do that. So personally, I would just come through here and start individually transferring Pokemon. Sometimes there are certain Pokemon that will, squeak their way through somehow, especially things like the costume Pokemon. Here, what I'll do is actually, I'm gonna click and costume. I'm gonna remove all the costume Pokemon. And you can even click and at special, which will remove Pokemon with legacy moves as well. So yeah, now there's like a huge good pool of Pokemon. I can go ahead, select all transfer. I could even go through these Pokemon and I'll tag like any Pokemon I want to trade for candies. For example, like some of these, I can go ahead and tag these in the trade. And the second I tag them in the trade, they'll be removed from the search thread. Because again, I have that trade search thread. These are all Pokemon I want to go ahead and trade away for candies. So yeah, go ahead and bulk transfer all these Pokemon, maybe mark some for trade, but this will get a huge bulk of the Pokemon in your storage transferred. Also, by the way, what you can do here is if you don't want to transfer these right away and you're not in a rush, you can actually select all of these and make a tag called 2x transfer. With this tag, what you can do is when there is a 2x transfer candy event, you can just simply come into here and go ahead and select all and then just transfer all these Pokemon during a 2x transfer candy event. This can get you a bunch more candies if you have the patience and the space to hold on to these Pokemon. Not everybody does, and if you're watching this video, you probably need space right now, but that is something if you're not in a rush to transfer. Okay, with that being said, you've gone ahead and transferred a bulk of your Pokemon and marked a bunch of PvP and raid attacking Pokemon and some of the gems. But before we continue, let's say you were struggling to find out what Pokemon you want to keep and what Pokemon you transfer. So here are a couple simple rules you can follow when going through your storage. First one is going to be, if you're not going to power up a Pokemon, probably transfer it. At the end of the day, unless it's a Pokemon you really care about and love and just want in your storage for a flex, if you're not gonna power a Pokemon, there's not a lot of use in having it. Let's say I have a 98% Snorlax in my collection, and I also have a 100% Snorlax in my collection. Both obviously great Pokemon. That 98% is still a very, very rare Pokemon. But most likely, I'm gonna be powering up the Hundo because it's just better. So there's nothing wrong with transferring away the 98%. At the end of the day, if there's a Pokemon, if you're like, should I keep this or should I not? Just think, would you actually power this thing up, or is there a better version of it you have that you'll power up, or potentially a better version you want to catch, or would you feel guilty powering it up? All those questions are things you should ask yourself. The second question is going to be, does the Pokemon make you happy? Even if it's a Pokemon that you won't go ahead and power up, you can ask yourself the question, is this a Pokemon that I like? Is this a Pokemon that I feel like is a good flex or has a good memory attached to it? There's nothing wrong with not keeping meta relevant Pokemon at all and being one of those trainers that just loves collectibles and having super rare stuff. You don't need to be a meta, I just need the best Pokemon in my collection kind of trainer. If a Pokemon makes you happy, you don't have to transfer it. At the end of the day, it's your storage, keep what you want. I just hope this video can help you break down some of the best Pokemon to keep. So yeah, follow those two rules if you're struggling. Okay, so you've gone ahead and bulk transferred all of your Pokemon, but as you notice, there's still some categories we haven't covered, and this is called the individual section. All those things we added in the search threads, things like, the legendaries, the shinies, all that stuff, I like to go through those one at a time just because I think they take a little more care in deciding what you want to transfer. So now what I'll do is I'll start going through all these categories individually, starting with shinies. What you're going to want to do here is go through all of your shiny collection. Obviously, I have like almost 1,500 shinies. You might not have as many of these, but there are some times when there can be so many shinies in your collection that it's getting overwhelming. For example, community day shinies. When you go out and play on a comm day, you end up catching so many. So maybe come in here and transfer a couple of these. For example, some of these shiny Chanseys I just caught on a comm day. If you don't want to transfer away your comm day Pokemon, another thing you can do is go ahead and mirror trade them with a friend. When you trade away Pokemon, there's like a 5% chance a Pokemon goes lucky, in which they'll have much higher IVs and could potentially come a Shundo. So instead of, transferring your comm day Pokemon, I know a lot of people will just trade them with friends and then transfer them if the IVs are bad. Another thing you can go ahead and do is send them to Pokemon Home. Come up here into your settings, you can go connected devices and Pokemon Home, and you can send your shinies here to Pokemon Home, in which you can then take them from Pokemon Home and put them in other Pokemon games like, Scarlet and Violet. That's another option. I personally like to transfer shinies. I only keep like 6 of a comm day shiny just because sometimes people will ask for them from trades, but usually not that much because everybody has comm day shinies. So yeah, go through these. I probably need to do a little search in here because look how many shiny Greninjas I have. I don't think I need this many shiny Greninjas. Again, rule of thumb, I like to keep 6 total of a Calm Day shiny, unless it's like a super rare one. Next up, you'll go through legendaries. I like to search legendary, mythical, and then comma ultra beast, because I kind of categorize them all as like the same thing. You can then go ahead and search by number and go through all of these individually, which ones you want to keep. When saving shadow legendaries and just legendaries in general, you have to be a little more flexible on the IVs. Again, you might not always be able to get that 15 attack we mentioned. So like, for example, this is a great IV Shadow Articuno. I'll definitely keep that. It's a 91%. This is a shiny Shadow Articuno, super rare. I'm going to keep that. This is a potential Ultra League Shadow Articuno, so I'll keep that. This Articuno, however, pretty bad IVs. I'll probably go ahead and transfer that. Again, be a little more flexible with the IVs on the shadows and the legendaries. And also, don't be scared to actually just keep legendaries, because sometimes people will ask them for trades. Not even just shiny legendaries, but sometimes people are like, hey, do you have like a, Mewtwo for trade? And I'm like, yeah, I do have a Mewtwo. Some people don't, have the most amount of Pokemon, so sometimes you can get some value out of like a Legacy Shadow Ball Mewtwo like this one. But again, go through there. You don't have to transfer too many legendaries, because again, at the end of the day, legendaries are great to have and are some of the rarest Pokemon. Also remember, do not transfer your one-time legendaries. Things like Solgaleo, Cosmog, Lunala, those things are very, very exclusive. Things like Zygarde, Diancie, all that, don't transfer that. Don't transfer that. But other stuff you can definitely go ahead and transfer. After that, we'll go through Shadow Pokemon. Now, I like to sort my shadows by recent just because all my old ones are already marked. Again, you're looking for good PvP IVs or good raid attacking IVs. So what I'll do here is I'm going to come through this terrible bag on terrible. This Tentacool could potentially be PvP, so I'll mark it, or, I'll obviously use like an app like Pokegenie or PvP IVs to check the IVs. And I'll start going through all these Pokemon and marking all the best ones. For example, this Barboach, which is a great PvP IV for Wishcash in the Great League. So I've gone ahead and marked it. Shadow Kyogre, obviously I only have one of those. I'm going to keep it no matter what. This Zubat's already marked. This Croagunk's actually not even that bad. 14 attack, that's a pretty good Croagunk. I will say, with PvP IV shadows and IV shadows, be a little more lenient. It's really, really hard to get good IV shadows. So, you don't always need the rank 1 or the highest possible rank Pokemon. Sometimes a worse ranking Pokemon will do completely fine. For example, this Golett, 14, 15, 5. Shadow Golurk, not a bad ghost and ground type raid attacker. So I might even consider keeping this and powering it up, because again, I want to be flexible with my IVs on shadows. For PvP IVs, I'd say anything in the top 500 rankings on a shadow Pokemon is great. And then anything with, 13 attack plus is good for raids. So again, mark all those, and then I'll go through here, and anyone that I haven't marked, like all of these, I'll go ahead and transfer. So just the ones that don't have those names or the stars. Bang, transferred. Next up, purified Pokemon. I don't have a lot of purified Pokemon. I don't recommend purifying your Pokemon, but if you do have purified Pokemon, usually they're great to transfer unless they're getting use. Obviously, I have a couple purified hundos like Golbat, this Tyranitar, which I fully regret doing, but still. Purified Sableye, purified Hundo Shelder, not sure why I did that. Purified Hundo Weedle. My purified Sableye for PvP, because that's one of the only ways you want PvP Sableyes, because you want the legacy move return on it. But yeah, I don't have a lot of purified Pokemon. I'd recommend transfer them. They're not that useful unless they have good IVs or you've marked them for raids or for PvP. By the way, before you transfer your shadows, you can actually purify them if you want to work on your purifier medal, which will be on screen here. It requires you to purify 1,000 Pokemon. Some Pokemon are more expensive to purify, but if you're going to transfer a shadow, you might as well purify it and then transfer it just to get points towards that medal. Next up, I'll search traded Pokemon. These are going to be Pokemon that I've received from trade. Sometimes the IVs are bad on the trade Pokemon. I am currently working on a video where I'm doing a lot of lucky trades, so that's why I haven't transferred these. But some of these Pokemon, like, I don't know, this this Kyogre, I probably would never power up this shiny Kyogre. I have a better shiny Kyogre, so I'd probably transfer this, but I'm just keeping it for a video. But yeah, again, go through all of your trade Pokemon and transfer ones that probably won't get a lot of use. Personally though, for me, there's nothing. Next up, you'll search at special. This is going to show you any Pokemon with a legacy move in Pokemon Go. Now do notice, frustration on shadow Pokemon is a legacy move, so I recommend searching and not frustration, because then it'll remove all the shadow Pokemon. But pretty much you can come in here and you can find all your Pokemon that know legacy moves. You're not really going to want to be transferring Pokemon with legacy moves because you've probably already, taken care of them in the last sections. But there are things like Smeargle that do, Smeargle only know legacy moves that you might want to go ahead and transfer just because they sneak through kind of thing. Again, this section shouldn't take you long, but you can go ahead and check all your Pokemon with legacy moves. And if there's any extras that you probably, again, won't ever power up, transfer them. And there you go. The final thing you can definitely go ahead and do is just take one last scroll through and see if there's anything in your storage that, again, you won't use for raids, you won't use for PvP, or is not important to you, and go ahead and transfer them. And And with that being said, guys, that is the video. I hope this video has helped you guys break down how to manage your storage. If you have anything to add it to the comment section below. And also check out the video right below me. This video breaks down tags and how to use tags when managing your storage. I showed a little bit of tags in this video with the trade tag, but there's other tags you can use to really help you manage and organize your storage long term. Check out that video below. Hope this video helped you guys manage your storage, and we'll see you next one. Fall for tips. Peace.